Have you ever felt like you and your partner are living in two totally different worlds, even though you're in the same house? Well, today we're going to dig into that silent distance that can creep into a relationship, and we'll use one couple's story to see if we can find a way back.
So let's meet Aamir. He went into marriage with this idea that it was, the finish line, a place where everything would just be calm and predictable. But what happens when the reality of being a team is anything but settled?
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Why do so many couples who start out strong just drift apart into this quiet disconnect? To figure that out, we're going to follow the story of Aamir and his wife, Zara.
It all starts right here, in what you could call the silent distance. This is that tricky phase where all these little unspoken expectations start to bump up against each other and cause cracks.
And here is the fundamental problem. For Aamir, his job was to provide. At the end of the day, he felt he'd earned his rest. For Zara, her job was managing the home, and at the end of her day, she needed connection, to feel seen. It's like they were running on two parallel tracks, both moving forward, but never, ever meeting.
And this one sentence, wow, it says everything. When Aamir said this, what he heard was a defense of his hard work. He was thinking, I'm doing my part. But what Zara heard was a total dismissal of her needs, like he was saying her feelings were just too much to handle.
So you can see how this quickly goes beyond just hurt feelings. It escalates into something way more intense. It becomes a battle over what each person believes they're owed, a war of rights.
And boom, the battle lines are drawn. Aamir feels he has a right to come home and just switch off. Zara feels she has a right to emotional support and to be a partner in decisions. They both dug in so focused on what they deserved that it just became a complete standoff. And in a standoff like that, nobody wins. But here's the thing. Neither of them was actually wrong. It's just that their perspectives were, they were incomplete. What they were about to learn is that a marriage can't really survive when it's all about individual rights. It needs a foundation of mutual respect and responsibility.
Okay, so something had to give. And the turning point, finally, came when they both decided to get some outside advice. And this led to a massive shift in how they saw not just each other, but their own roles in the partnership.
For Aamir, hearing this was an absolute game changer. It totally flipped his internal script. He went from thinking, what am I getting out of this, to what am I actually giving to this? It made him look at his contribution beyond just the paycheck.
And at the same time, Zara had her own breakthrough. She realized respect isn't something you just demand from someone else. It's a two-way street. It's something you have to actively practice in how you talk and react, especially when things get heated. Now, with these new ideas in their heads, they did the most important thing. They didn't just talk about it. They started the real hard work of turning that insight into action, building new habits one day at a time.
And they did it by focusing on 4 concrete things. First, they learned to listen without immediately getting defensive. Then, they made a rule. No yelling, no sarcasm when they argue. Third, he started pitching in more at home, and she started respecting his need to decompress. Balance started to replace blame. And finally, and this one sounds so small but it's huge, they started just saying thank you.
By doing all this stuff day in and day out, they started to uncover some much deeper truths, the kinds of core principles that really make a partnership last.
The first big realization was this. When you're just focused on your rights, without even trying to understand how your partner feels, it doesn't come across as a fair request. It just sounds like you're making demands. Second, they learned that love on its own just isn't enough. You can love someone to pieces, but if you don't have that underlying foundation of respect, the whole thing becomes incredibly fragile and can fall apart under pressure.
And finally, this one is so key. Just doing your part, checking off your responsibilities in silence, that doesn't bring you closer. In fact, it does the opposite. It can create this massive emotional canyon between you, leaving you both feeling totally alone.
So in the end, their whole goal changed. It stopped being about who could win the argument. Instead, it became about protecting the relationship itself. Their connection became the most important thing in the room, the thing they both had to defend.
And the result wasn't some perfect happily ever after where they never disagreed again. No way. It was something much more realistic, and frankly, much more sustainable. They made a commitment to keep trying, together. They finally understood that perfection wasn't the goal, the effort was.
And really, that's the thought I want to leave you with. What if the goal isn't to build a perfect relationship? What if the real art of being a partner is just found in that messy, beautiful, ongoing commitment to learning how to try together?